Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're tackling the global energy transition, really digging into the latest data from 2024.
Yeah, we've got some comprehensive reports looking at, everything from generation mix to climate impacts.
And our mission really is to pull out the core insights. Where are we headed? What does it all mean?
And there's a fascinating starting point. Low carbon sources generated over 40% of global electricity in 2024. That's a pretty big milestone.
It really is. Sounds great on the surface, but then you see the flip side, power sector emissions also hit a record high. How does that square?
Well, it comes down to just a huge surge in overall electricity demand. We're talking a 4% increase globally.
4%. Wow, what's driving that?
A lot of things. Think intense heat waves needing massive amounts of cooling, growing industries, more electric vehicles hitting the road, plus the demands from data centers, AI, it all adds up.
Right, so even with renewables ramping up.
Exactly. Even with that big push, the sheer increase in demand meant, well, fossil fuels had to fill some of that gap, leading to that slight increase in their generation.
Okay, so low carbon hit 40.9%. And the breakdown was hydropower still leading individually at 14.3%, then nuclear 9%, wind 8.1%, solar 6.9%.
But here's a key shift. Wind and solar combined actually generated more electricity than hydropower for the very first time.
That feels significant, like a changing of the guard almost.
It definitely signals the sheer speed of wind and solar deployment now. And it's important where the demand growth is happening over 80% in emerging economies.
China and India leading that charge? Or...
Primarily, yes.
Right.
Also interesting, oil's overall share in energy demand dipped below 30%, a 50-year low. Though natural gas saw strong growth, and coal demand actually rose in places like China and India, partly for cooling demand.
Let's zoom in on solar. The growth there is just staggering, a 29% increase in 2024.
Yeah, and it's doubled in just 3 years. It's been the largest source of new electricity globally for 3 years running now.
Incredible. And Asia is dominating installations.
Massively. 72% of installations, China alone is huge. The U.S. also added a significant amount. And crucially, global solar module prices fell about 35%.
That price drop has to be accelerating things, right?
Absolutely. Makes the economics much more compelling. Wind saw solid growth too, about 11%. Together, wind and solar were almost all the new renewable capacity added.
And hydro.
Hydro capacity increased, but only modestly. Still the biggest single low-carbon source by share, but yeah, overtaken by wind and solar combined in terms of actual generation output in 2024.
Okay, so back to the emissions paradox. All this renewable growth, yet record power sector CO2. It's tough.
It is, but the data does show advanced economies actually saw emissions decrease. The U.S. hit its lowest coal power use in 60 years. The EU is nearing 50% renewables for electricity.
So it's really a split picture globally.
Very much so. And we have to remember, renewables did prevent a massive amount of additional CO2, estimated at 2.6 billion tons annually. Without them, the emissions increase since 2019 would have been like 3 times bigger.
That's a crucial point. They are bending the curve, just not fast enough to overcome rising demand yet.
Exactly. And this is all happening as 2024 was confirmed as the warmest year on record, over 1.6 degrees C above pre-industrial levels. The climate goals, like limiting warming to 1.5 degrees, require peaking emissions basically now and sharp declines.
Which brings us to the economics. The renewables sector seems like a bright spot. Job growth in solar, lots of investment.
Yeah, and falling costs aren't just in solar panels. EV batteries, too. Clean power is projected to get cheaper. Plus, energy storage is booming installations, up over 75% globally.
But it's not all smooth sailing, is it? There are big challenges.
Definitely. High upfront costs for projects, even if running costs are low. Regulatory hurdles can be complex. Grid modernization is a massive, urgent need. You need the infrastructure to handle all this new variable power.
And that variability, the intermittency of solar and wind, that's still a factor.
It is. Storage helps, but it's still a challenge to manage. Plus, you have the potential economic disruption in regions heavily reliant on fossil fuels, and debates about subsidies, price volatility, lots to navigate.
What about nuclear? It seems to be getting another look.
It does. It provides around 10% of global electricity now, the second largest low-emission source after hydro. There's renewed interest, talk of tripling capacity by 2050, especially with these smaller modular reactors, SMRs.
But the safety concerns haven't gone away, right? Waste disposal, the small risk of accidents, security.
No, those concerns are still very much part of the conversation. Things like radioactive waste management, potential proliferation risks, they remain significant hurdles and points of public debate, even as adoption discussions increase.
Right. And of course, hovering over all of this are things like Government policies, technological innovation, public opinion, geopolitics, they all shape the path forward.
Absolutely. They're critical levers.
So wrapping this up, key takeaways seem to be amazing growth in renewables, particularly solar, which is fantastic.
But soaring overall energy demand means power sector emissions are still rising, which is deeply concerning.
Big economic opportunities in the transition, but also serious economic and technical challenges.
Yeah. And nuclear power. Its future role is definitely back on the table, but balanced against those persistent safety and waste questions.
Okay, so here's something to leave you with. We've got record heat and record renewable deployment happening at the same time. What fundamental shifts, either in how we use energy or maybe in technologies we haven't fully deployed yet, are still needed to actually decouple our energy consumption from rising emissions and meet those climate targets? It's quite the puzzle.
A very complex equation indeed. Lots to think about.
Thanks for diving deep with us.